My stepmother convinced my father to disinherit me on the exact day my grandmother's trust activated, giving me control of $450 million and quietly making her future depend on me. The notary's pen hovered above the paper. My father sat across the polished mahogany desk in his attorney's office, his hand shaking slightly. I couldn't tell if it was age or doubt. Behind him stood my stepmother, Diane, wearing that familiar smile, the one she used when she was about to ruin someone's life while pretending to care. "Just sign here, Richard," she said softly, resting her manicured hand on his shoulder. "It's what's best for everyone." I watched from the hallway, through the glass partition. My father's lawyer, Gerald, who had handled the family's legal matters for 30 years, glanced at me with an expression that looked almost like guilt. Then my father signed. Just like that, the new will was complete. I was cut out entirely. Everything, his estate, businesses, properties, went to Diane and my half-brother Colin. Colin was 19 and had never worked a single day in his life. His main talents were spending money and making bad decisions. Yet Diane planned to hand him an empire he had never built. And me? After 34 years of being his daughter, after working in the family company, after sacrificing my own dreams to support his legacy, I got nothing. Diane looked up and saw me through the glass. Her smile grew wider. Then she winked at me. She really believed she had won. What she didn't know was that my phone was about to buzz with a message that would change everything. "My name is Alexandra Sterling. I have an MBA from Stanford. I speak 4 languages. I sit on the boards of 3 Fortune 500 companies. And I had been waiting 17 years for this exact moment. Let me explain. My grandmother, Eleanor Sterling, was a financial legend. Born into a wealthy railroad family in Connecticut, she inherited nearly $2 billion at age 28. Through smart real estate deals, oil investments, and pharmaceutical holdings, she eventually turned it into more than $6 billion. She was brilliant with money and ruthless with anyone who tried to take advantage of her. She never trusted my father. She often called him weak and easily manipulated. But she trusted me. After my mother died, my grandmother raised me for the first 8 years of my life. During that time, she taught me everything: how to read financial reports, how to evaluate investments, and most importantly, how to recognize when someone was trying to manipulate me. When she passed away at 87, she shocked the entire family. Instead of leaving her fortune to my father, she created an irrevocable trust for me, her granddaughter. The trust would activate on my 34th birthday. Today, by the time it matured, the trust held $450 million in assets, real estate, investments, and shares in 12 companies. But the most interesting part was a clause my grandmother wrote herself. The trust was designed to protect me from manipulation by family members or anyone seeking financial advantage. And if any employee of Sterling Enterprises was found exploiting the family for personal gain, their employment would be immediately terminated and their salary placed under my control. My stepmother Diane had been an executive at Sterling Enterprises since 2008. Her salary was $400,000 a year plus another $100,000 in benefits. In less than an hour, she was about to lose that job, and that money would become mine to redistribute. I watched my father sign the papers that erased me from his will. I watched Diane celebrate her victory. And then I waited. Exactly 14 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my lawyer. "Alexandra," she said, "the trust activated this morning. Congratulations. You now control $450 million. As she began listing the assets, properties, and accounts now under my authority, she paused. "There's something else," she added. "I was reviewing the company's employment records, and I found something very interesting." "Diane Sterling. That's your stepmother, correct?" my lawyer asked. "Yes." Her employment contract contains a clause allowing termination if she is involved in financial manipulation within the family. Considering her role in convincing your father to disinherit you today, I believe that clause has been triggered. She paused. "I'll need your authorization to proceed with her termination and reassign her compensation package." "Do it," I said calmly. Then I walked into the attorney's office. Gerald looked up first, clearly surprised to see me. My father looked uncomfortable. Diane looked irritated, as if I had just interrupted something important. I wanted to congratulate you, I said, looking directly at my father. On your new will. On deciding that I'm not worthy of your legacy. On leaving everything to a teenager and his manipulative mother. Alexandra, my father began nervously. You have to understand. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. Diane convinced you that I'm selfish. That I'm a threat. That I don't deserve what I've worked for. And you believed her, because it was easier than thinking for yourself. For the first time, Diane's confident smile slipped. Just a little, but enough. However, I continued, placing my documents on the desk. Today is my 34th birthday. And today my grandmother's irrevocable trust activated. The room went silent. I now control $450 million in assets. I own 40% of Sterling Enterprises. I hold commercial real estate across 12 major cities. I have equity in pharmaceutical companies, tech startups, and oil operations. My father's face turned pale. Then I turned to Diane. And I have some news for you. You're fired. Her eyes widened. Effective immediately. Your employment contract clearly states that any employee manipulating family members for financial gain can be terminated. Your campaign to convince my father to disinherit me qualifies perfectly. You can't do that. Diane snapped. I have a contract. And I just exercised it. I replied. Your $400,000 salary and $100,000 benefits package have been terminated. As a Sterling family heir with controlling interest, I have authority over employment decisions. You no longer work for Sterling Enterprises. I'm calling my lawyer, she hissed. Please do, I said calmly. They'll tell you exactly what my lawyers told me. Your contract is very clear. You manipulated a family member for financial gain. Gerald, the attorney, quietly smiled. He had known about my grandmother's trust all along. He had been waiting for this moment. Alexandra, my father said softly, his voice suddenly uncertain. I didn't understand. That's the problem, I replied. You never understand. You're intelligent in many ways, but you're easily influenced. Instead of making your own decisions, you let Diane make them for you. I placed another document on the desk. I'm restructuring your position at Sterling Enterprises. You'll remain chairman emeritus, a ceremonial role. You'll keep an office and a title, but no decision-making authority. Your salary will be reduced to $200,000 a year. Actual control of the company now belongs to me. My father looked stunned. And one more thing, I added. Diane's former compensation package will now fund a charitable foundation. The $500,000 per year she once received will provide scholarships for underprivileged women. Her former benefits will support family therapy programs for victims of financial exploitation. This is revenge, Diane said bitterly. No, I corrected. This is justice. You tried to steal my inheritance by manipulating my father. You tried to erase me from this family so you and your son could take more money. That's theft, Diane. Just a more polite version of it. Then I looked back at my father. I'm giving you a choice. You can accept your new role and rebuild some respect between us, or you can fight me. And if you do, you'll find yourself completely cut out of Sterling Enterprises. Your choice, I told my father. Then I left the office. I didn't wait for their responses. I didn't wait for explanations. I had already made my decision, and nothing my father or Diane said was going to change it. The legal battle lasted 6 months. Diane hired a team of expensive attorneys who tried to argue that her termination was discriminatory. My lawyer shut that argument down quickly by presenting detailed records of her financial manipulation within the family. My father attempted another angle. He argued that his will should override my grandmother's trust. But that argument collapsed even faster. The trust was irrevocable, and my grandmother had written very clear language protecting it from any family interference. In the end, there wasn't much of a fight at all. Diane eventually withdrew her claims and accepted a settlement package, $11 million, which I considered generous. After that, she disappeared to Los Angeles. My father, forced to face the reality that he had destroyed his relationship with me for nothing, slowly accepted the compromise I had offered. We never became close again. We never became a warm family, but we built a respectful professional relationship. He advised me on certain business matters. Sometimes I listened. Sometimes I even used his ideas. Over time, he began to recognize how Diane had manipulated him. Colin, my half-brother, tried one final move. He sued me for his lost inheritance. His lawyers claimed he had built his life around the expectation of receiving that money. My lawyers asked a simple question. What life decisions?
Getting high?
Spending money he didn't have? The judge dismissed the case in about 45 minutes. But the real surprise came later. 3 years after the trust activated, my father passed away. His estate was worth around $40 million. The will he had signed, the one that disinherited me, was still in place when it entered probate. That money was originally meant to go to Diane. Except Diane was no longer his wife. They had divorced during the legal battles. And under Connecticut law, divorce automatically removes an ex-spouse from a will. My father had never updated the document. He had been so focused on lawsuits and conflicts that he never handled the paperwork. So his $40 million estate had no valid beneficiary. It reverted to the terms of his original will, the one written before Diane ever entered the picture. And that will directed the money toward educational endowments and medical research foundations, in my name. My father's attempt to erase my inheritance ended up creating an even larger legacy that carried my name. Sometimes I wonder what my grandmother would think about everything that happened. I believe she would have been proud, not just because I won, but because of how I handled it. Calmly, carefully, with documentation and precision. With the kind of strength that comes from knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone take it from you. Today, I run Sterling Enterprises. The company is now worth $18 billion and employs over 12,000 people. We've expanded into renewable energy, sustainable development, and global investment. I've also invested heavily in women-owned businesses and underrepresented entrepreneurs. Diane now works for a real estate firm in Los Angeles. Colin moved to Hawaii. And my father passed away knowing that his attempt to erase me had failed. His weakness became a lesson. The truth of this story is simple. You cannot steal from someone who has already inherited. You cannot erase someone who is protected by people stronger than you. And you cannot manipulate destiny when the timeline has already been set. My grandmother understood that. She created the trust knowing that one day I might face people who viewed family as an opportunity for profit. People who didn't realize that some legacies are built specifically to survive attacks like theirs. I survived because my grandmother loved me enough to protect me, even after she was gone. And in the end, I didn't just survive. I became stronger than I ever would have been if my father had simply included me in his will. Because the real inheritance isn't just money. It's the knowledge that your value doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. It comes from what you build, what you protect, and what you're willing to stand up for. My grandmother taught me that. And Diane learned it far too late.